Welcome, you're watching World Talks and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. We are going to run the country until such time that we can do a safe, proper and judicious transition, said U.S. President Donald Trump during a press conference following a capture of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife. The U.S. operation on Saturday marks an escalation in tensions between Washington and Caracas and represents one of the most significant U.S. interventions in Latin America in decades. Therefore, to talk about the events of the last 24 hours, Joanna Gocłowska-Bolek, Assistant Professor of Political Science at the University of Warsaw, joins me on World Talks. Thank you so much for joining me in what is a very, very dynamic and a very special day.
Yes, it's very dynamic and happens a lot. So we are observing the situation in Venezuela and the US, and also the press conference of Donald Trump.
So how would you comment on what took place today in Caracas, but also what took place in Florida when we heard from President Donald Trump, who announced what occurred and what is going to take place in weeks to come?
So it was a very detailed military operation to capture Nicolás Maduro and his wife, probably sleeping in one of their private houses. Nobody was killed, according to the words of Donald Trump. So it was a quite safe operation, and it demonstrates the possibilities of a U.S. army. So it's a good point for the U.S. and Donald Trump himself. But the biggest question now is what is the status of Venezuela now? So what's going to happen? Donald Trump talks about the regime change in Venezuela, but we are not really sure what's going to happen in next hours, next days. And this is a decisive moment for Venezuela's future. What's the role of Venezuelan opposition? What's the role of Maria Corina Machado, the Nobel Prize laureate, who is the opposition leader of Venezuela? So is she going back to Venezuela to join the group of people who's going to run this country or not? Because Donald Trump in his press conference talked about a group of people, probably American citizens, probably his closest allies to run the country. So what about the sovereignty of this country, and what about the future? We don't know the answer. We just pose many questions, and these questions will be probably answered in next hours, next days.
I would like to refer to the words of French Foreign Minister Mr. Barrot. He said, quote, "The military operation that led to the capture of Nicolás Maduro violates the principle of non-resort to force that underpins international law." Considering what's been said by Mr. Barrot, is the U.S. actually operating beyond the constraints of international law? How do you think, because we hear different responses coming from those countries that are standing for Maduro, and we're hearing from the European Union, we're having all sorts of responses. Do you think that the U.S. is actually working outside of bounds of international law?
There is a lot of criticism about the action that was taken by Donald Trump himself, by all this military build-up in next to territory of Venezuela. It was out of the legal status. And we should remember that this is the U.S. Congress that is to start the war. in the case of the US. So the US Congress was not even informed about the situation and about the steps that are going to be taken this morning. And they didn't legalize all this action. So there is a lot of criticism inside the United States and outside the United States, also in the European Union, among many leaders about this situation. And probably Donald Trump is trying to find some way to just to try to say that this is inside his power, but we are not quite sure about this. Probably there will be some actions taken against this inside the U.S. Congress. But anyhow, it happened. Yeah, so this is something that is going to show us the power, the power of Donald Trump, and that he is able to take the actions even outside the U.S. Congress permission.
But is it truly about restoring Venezuelan democracy, or perhaps are we looking at something different taking place? I would like to take us back to the Monroe Doctrine. This was something that was also referred in the documents this year that were released, the NSS, when it comes to focusing on America. So we have the Monroe Doctrine introduced by President James Monroe in 1823. And initially it was supposed to remove, for example, European influence from North America. Right now in 2026, we're looking at something completely different. We've heard Donald Trump say, quote, "The Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a real lot." They now call it the Monroe Doctrine. I don't know. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting the American power in our home region. How would you comment on this? Is it really about restoring democracy, or perhaps there is also something else at play, and not only the drug cartels that Donald Trump mentioned?
In fact, this is a very important, just a crucial moment that the U.S. is taking actions inside American hemisphere. So this is partly confirming the status of Monroe's doctrine, and it was referred to in during many situations just before. Let's call a new year of Monroe's doctrine, or using some other name, doesn't matter so much, but it demonstrates the willingness of the United States to keep the power and keep its sphere of interest that are both Americas. So also the South America is inside this sphere of interest, and this action taken today demonstrates the power and the willingness of Donald Trump to keep Venezuela and probably other countries under control, and also under political and under economical control.
Mm-hmm. We know that before Maduro and his wife were being captured by the U.S. forces, there was a visit by a special envoy from China who had a conversation with Mr. Maduro. Given that Venezuela has a strategic oil reserve, do you think that U.S. intervention perhaps may have something to do with weakening China's energy security by tightening U.S. influence around Venezuela, which has massive oil reserves?
Obviously, yes. I believe that this is one of the reasons why Donald Trump decides to intervene in Venezuela, because Venezuela and the other South American countries has been collaborating very closely with China in economic sense, but also in political sense. And in Venezuela, there is a lot of Chinese interest. There are many Chinese companies involved, especially in the oil industry. So this is a quite attractive moment for Donald Trump, just to say hello, but this is something that belongs to us. And he articulates just this during his press conference, that he's going to keep all these oil reserves under control, and he is going to run the oil business in Venezuela. So this is probably something. But let's remember that there are many countries in South America, or widely speaking Latin America, that cooperate with China very closely. So probably they will treat this action that was taken today in Venezuela and some kind of a threat, and something that they should keep in mind while trying to cooperate with China even closer.
I would like us to zoom out for a moment and talk about how this sudden turn of events is actually going to have an effect on the peace talks around Ukraine. This was something that was in the headlines over the last few days. We're having an incredibly important meeting taking place today. We have another one taking place in France on the 6th. When it comes to the peace deal, when it comes to security guarantees for Ukraine, and yet the eyes of the world are now turning to Venezuela and the United States. How do you think this is going to affect the peace talks?
This what happened today in Venezuela will influence everything else probably next weeks, next months. So it has to bring us another view on other regions as well. And I can imagine that Russia's leader, Putin, at the moment is quite happy with this what happened, because he can now state, well, so when Donald Trump is keeping his hands on Venezuela and on its oil, and he is trying to change the regime in Venezuela because he just wants this change. So why should I keep my hands away from Ukraine? Let's think about China and Indo-Pacific region. This is the same story. So probably this what happened today in Venezuela will affect all other regions, and we can expect many quite similar acts of violence of international law in next weeks, maybe next months.
Our time is coming to an end, but I wanted to ask you this final question. Do you think that based on what happened last night, what happened this morning and throughout the day, do you think that there is a possible escalation when it comes to Venezuela, when it comes to the U.S. and Venezuela's allies who could say, listen, you can't just act this way. You can't take a president of a country and take him to your country to put him in front of court of justice. Do you think that there could be a possible escalation militarily, perhaps, in the near future?
Probably not. We could observe today that there was no reaction in Venezuela, no reaction of the Venezuelan army. There are, of course, statements of other leaders in the regions who mostly are against this kind of actions because it is very similar to the interventionism that we observed decades ago, and it never happened to be a good solution for any country in the region. Anyhow, I don't expect any military escalation at the moment. But of course, the situation is very dynamic, and we will see what's going to happen in next hours, next weeks.
And we will be here on TVP World to be bringing our viewers more on the situation. Joanna Gocłowska-Bolek, Assistant Professor of Political Science at the University of Warsaw, was my guest. Thank you so much for joining me on World Talks.
Thank you for the invitation.
And so this would be all for now. Thank you for joining me. I'm Klaudia, Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here in just a moment for more news and features, especially when it comes to the recent developments here on TVP World.